Name is Daniel Hartley, and until 2:43 p.m. on a TORS day afternoon, I believe that the company I'd given 12 years of my life to Wayford, the company I'd judged 12 years of my life to Akeley, understood what I did for them. That belief ended when our new CFO, Brandon Kowalski, pulled up a spreadsheet on the conference room projector and circled my name in red in front of 22 people. I'm 51 years old. I've been the Director of Enterprise Partnerships at Meridian Healthcare Technology in Boston for 12 years. My job in plain terms is managing the relationships with the hospital networks and regional health systems that license our software platform. 46 client organizations. Combined contract value $318 million annually. Every renewal, every expansion, every time a health system decided to add another facility to their Meridian agreement, that came through me. My wife Carol teaches third grade in Brookline. We have a son, Jake, who's a junior at University of Michigan studying data science, and a daughter, Megan, who started her freshman year at Boston College last August. Between Jake's tuition, Megan's, our mortgage in Newton, and everything that comes with 2 kids in college simultaneously, we're comfortable, but we're not sitting on a pile of extra cash. I'm the primary income in our house. That matters because of what happened next. Brandon Kowalski had been CFO for 8 weeks when he called the Thursday leadership meeting. He came from a private equity background, the kind of guy who spent his career making companies look efficient on paper before flipping them. The board had brought him in specifically to tighten margins before a potential acquisition. He was 44, dressed in that particular way consultants dress when they want you to know they went to a good school, and he had the absolute confidence of someone who has never been wrong about anything, at least not in front of an audience. The meeting was a standard quarterly operations review, or so the invitation said. I grabbed coffee with my colleague Priya from product development before we walked in. She mentioned Brandon had been requesting compensation reports from HR for the past 2 weeks. Full breakdowns. Individual line items. She said it with the careful neutrality of someone delivering a warning they hope turns out to be nothing. I wasn't particularly alarmed. I'd been through 3 executive leadership changes at Meridian. My numbers were consistently strong. Client retention over my tenure averaged 96%. In the past 12 months alone, I'd closed $47 million in contract renewals and brought in 2 new health system accounts worth another $28 million combined. If Brandon Kowalski was looking for places to cut, I couldn't imagine my department was where the conversation would land. I was wrong about that. The first 40 minutes of the meeting were normal enough. Brandon walked through Q3 financials, margin analysis, departmental operating costs, some infrastructure spending flagged for review, a vendor contract that needed renegotiating, standard cost management work that any competent CFO does coming into a new role. Then he got to compensation benchmarking. He'd built a slide deck comparing Meridian's salary structure against what he called industry-aligned market data, compensation surveys from 3 consulting firms, benchmarked against as best I could tell. Every healthcare tech company except the ones that actually competed with us for enterprise contracts. He walked through several roles. Some were flagged for what he called structural realignment opportunities. The VP of Customer Success, 2 senior engineers, a couple of regional account managers. Each slide showed current compensation against his benchmark range, presented with the clinical detachment of someone analyzing a line item rather than a person's livelihood. Then my name appeared on screen. Not just my name. My full compensation package, base salary of $287,000, performance bonus structure, benefits valuation, total annual package of $334,000. All of it projected onto a 12-foot screen in a conference room with 22 of my colleagues sitting in front of it. Daniel Hartley, Director of Enterprise Partnerships, Brandon said, and his tone was the same tone he'd used for the infrastructure spending, flat. Analytical, like he was reading a balance sheet entry. Current total compensation represents a 61% premium above median market rate for enterprise account director roles in the healthcare technology sector. This is one of the most significant compensation outliers we've identified in the review. The room went quiet in a particular way, not the quiet of people thinking, the quiet of people who don't know where to look. I felt heat move up from my collar. Not embarrassment about the number. I negotiated that package over 12 years of results, and I'd earned it. What I felt was something closer to the sensation of being accused of something in public. My financial life, the number that paid Jake's tuition and Megan's dorm and our mortgage, was sitting on that screen as evidence of a problem. Marcus Webb, Our VP of sales, who'd been at Meridian longer than I had, cleared his throat. Brandon, Daniel's accounts represent a significant portion of our recurring revenue. The relationship context there is, Marcus, I appreciate the input, Brandon said, not looking at Marcus. But that's exactly the kind of reasoning that creates structural compensation problems. Every high-compensated employee has a narrative about why their specific situation is different. The data doesn't support a 61% market premium for this role category. He clicked to the next slide. My proposed realigned compensation, $178,000 base, reduced bonus eligibility, elimination of the retention benefits I'd accumulated through tenure. Total package, $198,000. A 41% reduction, displayed on screen for 22 people to read and discuss. This adjustment represents approximately $136,000 in annual savings and brings the Director of Enterprise Partnerships role into alignment with comparable positions at peer organizations. It's a necessary correction to achieve our margin targets ahead of the Q2 strategic review. I looked around the table. Some people were studying their notepads. A few were looking at their laptops with the focused attention of people who very much do not want to make eye contact. Our head of legal, a woman named Sandra Park, was writing something down with the careful expression of someone taking notes for a specific purpose. I kept my voice as level as I could. Brandon, the compensation benchmarks you're referencing, are those for enterprise partnership directors at companies with comparable contract portfolios? Because the median role you're comparing me against typically manages somewhere between $30 and $50 million in annual contract value. I'm managing over $300 million. The role function is the same regardless of portfolio size, Brandon replied. Enterprise relationship management is a coordination and retention function. The revenue those accounts generate is a product of Meridian's platform, our service delivery infrastructure, our pricing competitiveness. Your role facilitates the administrative relationship layer. That function has a market rate, and we're significantly above it. Administrative relationship layer. 12 years of flying to Cleveland at 6 a.m. when Mid-Ohio Health Network's IT director called me in a panic because their patient scheduling integration had gone down before a system-wide rollout. 12 years of sitting in hospital boardrooms with CMOs and CFOs who called my personal cell when they had questions about contract terms because they trusted me more than they trusted a support ticket. 12 years of learning the specific operational concerns of 46 different organizations well enough to know which problems to solve before they became reasons to switch vendors. Administrative relationship layer. What exactly are you proposing as a timeline? I asked. We need acceptance of the revised compensation structure by end of business Friday. The board has approved these adjustments across multiple positions, and implementation needs to occur before the Q4 close. You can accept the realigned package, or we can discuss a transition arrangement for the role. Transition arrangement. The corporate version of door number 2. The meeting continued. I stopped absorbing it. I was doing arithmetic in my head. Jake's Michigan tuition was $53,000 this year. Megan's Boston College was $61,000. Our mortgage in Newton was $5,200 a month. Carol's teaching salary covered a lot, but not $136,000 worth of shortfall, not with 2 kids in school simultaneously. But the math wasn't actually what was sitting in my chest. Brandon Kowalski had been CFO for 8 weeks. He had never made a single sales call. He had never sat in a hospital administrator's office trying to understand why a $4 million contract renewal was at risk because of a billing integration issue that had nothing to do with our platform and everything to do with the relationship capital required to hold the account through the relationship capital required problem. He had looked at my salary with 8 weeks of context and decided, in front of 22 people, that I was a 61% error in the company's cost structure. When the meeting ended at 4:15, I walked back to my office and closed the door. I sat at my desk for a few minutes and just looked at the wall. There was a photo from the New England Healthcare Innovation Conference 3 years ago. Me and the Chief Information Officer of Atlantic Regional Health, Dave Kowalski, no relation, taken the year we closed their system-wide expansion contract, the largest single deal in Meridian's history at the time. There was a thank you letter from Sunrise Medical Group after I'd spent a weekend personally coordinating an emergency data migration when their legacy system failed mid-month. There was an industry award from the Healthcare Technology Association for Enterprise Account Management from 2 years ago. Brandon Kowalski had just characterized all of it as administrative overhead. I opened my email and found the message I'd been thinking about since approximately the moment my salary appeared on that screen. 6 weeks earlier, Not 4 months, not a year, 6 weeks. I'd received a formal offer letter from Northbridge Health Solutions, Meridian's most direct competitor in the enterprise segment. Their chief revenue officer, a woman named Patricia Okafor, had been recruiting me for 2 years. 6 weeks ago, she'd sent a written offer, Senior Vice President of Strategic Accounts, full operational authority over their enterprise portfolio, equity participation tied to revenue growth, and a compensation package that Patricia had specifically structured to reflect what she called actual revenue impact, rather than survey-derived benchmarks. I had turned it down out of loyalty to Meridian. I'd sent Patricia a polite reply saying I appreciated the offer but was committed to where I was. That commitment had just been valued at $198,000 in front of 22 colleagues. I picked up my phone and called Patricia directly. Not email, not text, a phone call, because I needed to know in the next 30 seconds whether that offer was still real before I made any decisions. She picked up on the second ring. "Patricia, this is Daniel Hartley. I need to ask you something directly. Is the offer you sent me 6 weeks ago still on the table?" A pause. "Daniel, I've been hoping you'd call. What happened?" "New CFO. 8 weeks in. Put my salary on a projector in front of the entire leadership team, called me a 61% market premium, and gave me until Friday to accept a 41% pay cut." I heard her exhale slowly. "Then, our offer is not only still on the table, it's better than what I sent you. We closed 2 major health systems last quarter, and we're scaling faster than we projected. I would like you in our office Monday morning. Can you be here at 9? "Yes." "Good." "And Daniel, I want you to know that the only reason I haven't filled that role is because I've been waiting for you specifically. Every major account we're trying to win, your name comes up in the room. We'll talk details Monday, but I promise you won't be disappointed." I hung up and sat for a moment. Then I opened a new email. "Brandon and leadership team. After careful consideration of today's compensation discussion, I am resigning from Meridian Healthcare Technology effective immediately. I have accepted a senior leadership position with Northbridge Health Solutions, where my compensation reflects the revenue value of the relationships I've built rather than median survey benchmarks. I wish the team well. Daniel Hartley." I read it once. I sent it. I was thorough about what I packed and what I left. Personal photos. The industry award. The thank you letters I'd kept over the years. A coffee mug Carol had given me that said "World's Okayest Husband" that had lived on my desk since my second year at Meridian. 2 boxes. 12 years. I carried them to my car in 2 trips, and I didn't look back at the building. I called Carol from the parking garage. She teaches 3rd grade. She deals with 8-year-olds having emotional crises over lost pencils and hurt feelings. She has a particular skill for waiting until someone is done talking before she responds, which I have always been grateful for and never more so than that evening. I told her everything. The projector, Brandon's flat, analytical voice, the 41% number on screen, Patricia's offer, my resignation email, already sent. She was quiet for a moment. "You called to confirm the offer was still there before you sent the email?" "First thing. Good." Another pause. "What's the new package?" "We're finalizing Monday, but 6 weeks ago she was talking $370,000 base, equity participation, full operational authority. She said it's better now." Carol did the quiet math I'd already done. Tuition, mortgage, the car payment, the fact that Megan's textbooks alone cost more than a car payment every semester. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I will be. Come home. I'll make dinner and you can tell me the part you left out where you said something really good to Brandon before you left." "I didn't actually. I just sent the email." "That's better," she said. "That's smarter." She was right, it was. I got home to Newton at 6:30. By 7, my personal cell had received 11 text messages from Meridian colleagues who'd been in that room. Variations on a theme, "What happened?" "Are you okay?" "This was wrong. Call me." I didn't respond to any of them. That wasn't the story that was starting. The one that was starting came at 8:15 when Raymond Torres called. Raymond was the Chief Operating Officer of Coastal Health Partners, my largest single account. 13 years of working together. $58 million in annual contracts. He called my personal cell because that's how we'd operated for over a decade. When something mattered, we didn't go through Meridian's account management portal. "Daniel, I just heard you left Meridian today. Tell me what happened." I told him. When I finished, Raymond was quiet for a few seconds. You know I've told you this before, but I want to be clear. Coastal works with Meridian because Coastal works with you. When our Epic integration failed last spring and we had 17,000 patient records in limbo, you personally stayed on the phone with our IT team for 11 hours over 2 days. Meridian's support team filed tickets. You fixed the problem. That's not a platform relationship. That's a personal one. Raymond, I have a non-compete clause that prevents me from directly soliciting Meridian clients. I want to be completely transparent about that. I'm not being solicited, Daniel. I'm calling you, and I'm telling you that our contract with Meridian is up for renewal in 4 months, and the evaluation criteria we use for renewal have everything to do with account relationship quality. A pause. Where are you going? Northbridge. Then Coastal's procurement team will be reaching out to Northbridge within the week, independently. Because that's our right as a client. By 10 o'clock that night, I'd received similar calls from 4 more health system contacts, all of them reaching out to me, all of them asking some version of the same question, all of them giving me some version of the same answer without me asking for anything. I went to bed knowing that Brandon Kowalski's $136,000 in annual savings was going to be the most expensive cost reduction in Meridian's history, but I didn't know how expensive yet. Monday morning, I was in Patricia Okafor's office at Northbridge Health Solutions in Cambridge at 8:55 a.m. The final offer was everything she'd described and more. $385,000 base salary, 12% equity participation vesting over 4 years, full authority over enterprise account development, and a signing bonus that covered my transition costs with room to spare. We signed by noon. While Patricia and I were reviewing the contract details, my phone was receiving forwarded messages from former Meridian colleagues. Coastal Health Partners had submitted a formal notice of contract review to Meridian's account management team, citing changes in relationship management structure and service continuity concerns. Atlantic Regional Health, my second largest account, had done the same. By the time I drove back across the Charles River that afternoon, 6 formal contract review notices had landed at Meridian. Brandon Kowalski called me at 3:20 p.m. I was sitting in my new office, a corner office, which was a detail that was not lost on me, when his name appeared on my screen. I answered. Daniel, we have a serious situation. 6 major clients have initiated contract review processes this morning, all of them specifically citing account relationship continuity in their communications. This appears to be directly connected to your departure. Brandon, I'm no longer employed by Meridian. Client relationship decisions are the responsibility of whoever manages those accounts now. These are coordinated actions. What you're doing could be considered tortious interference and potentially a violation of your non-compete agreement. I haven't contacted a single Meridian client. You can verify that through my phone records, my email, anything you'd like to examine. Clients are making independent evaluations of whether Meridian can serve their needs without the relationship infrastructure I built. That's their right as clients. I let that sit for a second. You told me last Thursday that client relationships are a product of Meridian's platform and service delivery. The clients appear to disagree. He didn't have an answer for that. We're prepared to discuss reinstating your position, he said finally. I've already accepted an offer elsewhere. We can match it. This isn't about the number, Brandon. You displayed my compensation as evidence of organizational dysfunction in front of 22 colleagues and proposed cutting it by 41%. That's not a number problem. That's a judgment problem, and I no longer work for you. I ended the call. What followed over the next 22 days I watched partly from my new office at Northbridge and partly through former colleagues who were living through it at Meridian and couldn't quite believe what they were seeing. By the end of the first week, 12 health systems had either formally terminated their Meridian contracts or initiated non-renewal processes. Combined annual contract value, $167 million. By the end of week 2, 19 client organizations, $238 million. By week 3, 26 clients representing $284 million had either left or formally announced they were leaving, nearly the entire portfolio I'd managed. Meridian attempted emergency retention outreach, executive recastles, emergency pricing concessions, offers of dedicated transition support. Some clients took the calls. Most of them explained politely but clearly that the issue wasn't pricing. It was that the person who understood their operations, who they called when things went wrong, was no longer there, and the platform, no matter how good, was not the relationship. Healthcare Technology Weekly ran a piece at the end of week 2 titled Meridian Faces Unprecedented Client Exodus Following Senior Departure. The article described it carefully, as business journalism does, but the industry read it the way the industry reads things. Brandon Kowalski had cost-optimized the person who was holding $318 million in contracts together and discovered too late that the contracts weren't attached to the company. They were attached to the person. Meridian's revenue dropped 31% in a single quarter. They laid off 94 employees, sales support, implementation specialists, client services staff who had nothing to do with the decision Brandon made in that conference room. That part was not satisfying to me. 94 people who were good at their jobs, who had mortgages and families and student loans of their own, paid the price for one man's conviction that relationship management was an administrative function with a market rate. Brandon Kowalski was removed from his CFO role by the board at the end of month 2. The official statement cited strategic miscalculation in talent retention and client relationship architecture. He landed at a regional logistics firm, a considerable step down from a healthcare technology company with 9 figures in annual revenue. At month 3, Meridian's board reached out to me through an intermediary. Not Brandon, he was already gone. The board chairman himself. He wanted to know if there was any path to a consulting arrangement that might help stabilize their remaining client relationships. I thanked him for reaching out and explained that I was fully committed to Northbridge, where I now had equity in a company that was growing specifically because it understood the difference between salary expenses and revenue architecture. By my first full quarter at Northbridge, I had formally engaged 31 former Meridian clients who had independently chosen to work with me. Patricia gave me a standing ovation in our all-hands meeting, which I found slightly embarrassing and entirely appreciated. Combined new contract commitments, $294 million annually, more than I'd managed in my last year at Meridian. 8 months after I started, the Healthcare Technology Association gave Northbridge its Enterprise Growth Award. Patricia accepted it at the podium and said simply, "We invested in a person, not a benchmark." Carol framed the news article from that ceremony. It's hanging in our kitchen in Newton, next to a photo from Jake's junior year parents' weekend at Michigan and one from Megan's first week at Boston College. I kept one other thing from the Meridian years, a screenshot of Brandon's slide. My name, my compensation package, the red circle, the words 61% market premium in the column next to it, 22 people in the frame who didn't know where to look. It's in the bottom drawer of my desk at Northbridge. I don't display it. I don't need to. I think about it sometimes when I'm sitting across from a health system CFO who's explaining a budget concern, or on a 6 a.m. flight to a client site, because something's gone wrong and my being there in person is the difference between keeping the relationship and losing it. I think about Brandon's voice, flat and certain, explaining that what I do is a coordination function with a market rate. The market answered that question, just not in the way he expected. I got called a 61% overpayment in front of 22 colleagues. So, I resigned, and the revenue dropped 31%. Not because I did anything except leave, but because the thing Brandon couldn't see from behind his compensation benchmarking slides was that in relationship-driven businesses, the relationship is the product, the software, the platform, the service infrastructure. Those are what justify the initial conversation. What keeps a $58 million contract renewing year after year is whether the person on the other end of the phone at 11 p.m. actually understands your business well enough to help you. You can benchmark a title. You can survey what a role pays at median companies. What you cannot put in a spreadsheet is 12 years of trust, and you cannot recover it by offering $476,000 after you've already told the room it was only worth $198,000. Brandon Kowalski learned that. It just cost him and 94 people who deserved better, more than it should have. I've thought a lot about what actually happened in that conference room. Not the humiliation part, that fades. What I keep coming back to is how completely Brandon believed he was right. He wasn't performing confidence. He had the genuine settled certainty of someone who has confused measuring a thing with understanding it. He looked at my compensation, compared it to a column in a survey, and concluded the math was wrong. It never occurred to him that the math was the least important part of what he was looking at. That's not a personality flaw. That's a failure of intellectual honesty. The kind that happens when someone stops asking whether their framework is adequate and starts assuming it is. Brandon had a tool that worked in other contexts, and he applied it to a context it couldn't see. The surveys he used measured what companies pay people with similar titles. They couldn't measure what those people actually hold together. And he never thought to ask the question, because asking the question would have required him to admit there were things his data couldn't capture. I don't say that to be harsh about him. I say it because I've made versions of the same mistake every person who has ever operated with confidence in a new situation has. The difference is what you do when reality starts pushing back. Brandon's first instinct, when 6 clients issued contract reviews in a single morning, was to accuse me of orchestrating it. His framework didn't have room for the simpler explanation, that he had been wrong, so he went looking for a conspiracy instead. That's what intellectual rigidity does. It protects itself by making the evidence the problem rather than the conclusion. What Carol said to me the night I came home matters more to me now than it did then. She asked whether I'd confirmed the offer before sending the email. That one question, practical, clear, no drama, was the difference between a decision made with integrity and one made in reaction. I had confirmed it, but the fact that she asked is the thing. Integrity isn't just about knowing your worth. It's about the discipline to act on that knowledge without letting the emotion of a situation pull you into decisions you haven't thought through. The anger was real and the anger was justified. But I sent that email because I had a confirmed path forward, not because I was furious. Those two things can feel the same in the moment. They're not the same thing. Raymond Torres called me because of 12 years of showing up, not 12 years of filing reports or hitting metrics on a dashboard. 12 years of actually being present when his organization needed someone who understood their problems well enough to solve them. That kind of trust doesn't come from being skilled. It comes from being consistently trustworthy, which is a different thing entirely. Skill gets you in the room. Character is what keeps people calling your personal cell at 8 o'clock at night when something's gone wrong. The 94 people who lost their jobs at Meridian? That's the part I still carry. They had nothing to do with Brandon's decision. They were good at their work. They just happened to be employed by a company whose leadership had just discovered, the hard way, that the revenue they thought was institutional was actually personal. The cost of that discovery landed on people who never sat in that conference room and never had a say in any of it. That's not karma. That's just what happens when leaders make consequential decisions without adequately thinking them through. The consequences don't stay contained to the people who made the call. I know my worth now in a way I didn't fully let myself believe before that Thursday. Not because I needed Brandon to confirm it, but because I had to act on it without knowing for certain how it would land. That's the thing about knowing your worth. It's not a feeling you get from external validation. It's a decision you make about how you're going to move through the world, and then you live with the results. I made that decision in a parking garage with 2 cardboard boxes in the back seat. The results, it turned out, were more than I'd asked for. But I didn't know that when I made the call. I just knew I wasn't going to accept someone else's benchmark as the final word on what I'd built.